Um, my opinion, the Rav Kook's relationship to teshuva represents a stepping stone to understand his thinking in general, because everything for him is a movement towards its source. For instance, the Maharal of Prague in the 16th century, when he says the Jewish people in the diaspora are in an unnatural setting. He says the natural settings is that people are supposed to be in their land. And there's a connection between the Jews and the land. In fact, you can find this in the Parshanim, the Ramban, in Vayikra, when it talks about the curses. You have two places in the Torah that talk about the curses, the klalot. In Vayikra, there's a verse that says, "V'hashimoti ani et haaretz, v'shamamu aleha oivechem hayoshvim ba," which means, I shall bring the land into desolation, and the nations will be astonished at how desolate the land is. Now, this is a double entendre, because Hashimoti from the word shmama, which means desolation, shamamu, which is the same root, means to be astonished. So you have the same word, it's a play on words. The nations will see how devastated the land of Israel is, how barren, and they will be astonished at how desolate. Rashi, on that verse, says that Zumidat Taval Israel, this is a blessing. It means that as long as Israel is not in the land, no nation will be able to build up this land. So the nations will see how barren the land is, because the land will not produce fruit for any other nation. There's almost like an organic connection between the Jews and the land. Ramban, Nachman, he's in the 13th century, when he comments on this verse in Vayikra, he says, I was in Israel and I saw how barren the land is. And I can tell you that this verse is 100% right, because Ramban went to Israel in 1263 and he saw that the land was barren. Look, all these years, nothing's here. And Rabbeinu B'chaya ben Asher, who was a student of the Ramban, he was a student of the Rashba, Shlomo ben Aderet, he adds to the Ramban's comment that not only will they not be able to build up the land, but the land will not allow anybody back until the young birds come back to the nest, which means until the Jewish people come back to the land. So this idea of the relationship between the land and the people. So when the people come back to the land, it's an act of teshuva. They're coming back to their source, according to Ramchal, because it's unnatural for the people to be in diaspora. When they come back to their source, this is a natural movement. For Rav Kook, this natural movement is lashuv, to return, but it's also an act of collective penitence of the Jewish people. We want to set things right. Because what is teshuva? It's setting things right. It's just being yourself. Rav Kook says about, he has a description. What does it mean, ben chorin? What is the definition of to be free? Rav Kook says to be free is to be yourself. Because when you're enslaved, you cannot be yourself. When you're being controlled, you cannot be yourself. To be free means to be yourself. Why is the matzah called the matzah of freedom? Because, right, we left, it's, why is the matzah of freedom? Because the matzah is not leavened. The leavening forces the dough to take on a certain mold. The matzah can do whatever it wants. Okay, today we push it into a mold anyhow with the machines. But officially, the matzah can do whatever it wants, because there's no leavening agent to force it to be different than what it wants to be. That's why the matzah symbolizes freedom, says Rav Kook. Okay, so let's get back to this, Rot HaTshuva. Now, we just read the introduction last time. I want to read to you chapter 1. Chapter 1, I found it the most interesting of all the chapters. These are, of course, personal things. Okay, I'm trying to make this easier, and I see it's making it harder for me. Where is it? Here it is. This is called, according to Rav Kook, there are 3 levels of teshuva: natural teshuva, faith-based teshuva or religious teshuva, and intellectual teshuva. What is natural teshuva? That's the first one. He says, teshuva we find in 3 categories: natural teshuva, teshuva tivit; faith-based or religious teshuva, teshuva emunit; and rational teshuva, teshuva sichli. He says even natural teshuva has 2 categories. There's natural physical teshuva, corporeal, having to do with the body, and there's a teshuva which has to do with the nefesh, with the mind. So, gufanit, bodily teshuva, is also connected to all the averot, the transgressions against nature, but also to morality and to the Torah, which are connected to nature. Because in the end of the day, any bad decision that you make connected to your body is going to bring pain and is going to bring disease. If you are obese because you like to eat sweets, that brings disease. If you like going out in the winter without a coat, that brings disease. If you drink too much alcohol, that brings disease. If you abuse your body with junk food, that brings disease. When you start eating well, that's an act of teshuva towards your body. Now, this is an excellent paradigm to understand teshuva. For Rav Kook, teshuva is not just an act of penitence because we feel guilty. It's related to the cause, which means the pain that we bring upon ourselves is self-inflicted. That's what teshuva tivit is. I went outside without a coat. I got a cold. I have nobody to blame but myself. I'm eating sweets and chocolate all day long. I get obese and I get sick. I have nobody to blame but myself. I eat junk food. I couldn't care about anything else and I get sick. I have nobody to blame but myself. For Rav Kook, when a person does not take into account the spiritual needs of themselves, it's just like it's like the needs of the body. You will get spiritually sick. You caused it. That's it. That's how you have to understand it. God is not interested in punishing human beings. All he's telling us, don't inflict yourself with certain things. Now, there's a difference between bodily teshuva and spiritual teshuva, and I'll tell you the difference. You see, when I go out without a coat, the body's going to punish me right away because I will get sick in the middle of the winter. However, when I do something against my soul, I don't feel it. What's the proof? If I don't eat for a day, I'm going to feel terrible. But if I don't pray for a month, I feel okay. Because these are long-term things. The needs of the soul are long-term. They don't happen as quick as nature. If I put my hand in the fire, I feel the mistake as soon as I touch the fire. But if I don't keep Shabbat, I don't feel anything. Because things that have to do with spirituality are much more sensitive. But what we have to understand from this paradigm of teshuva tivit, of natural teshuva, is just like I get punished by the body for abusing it, and it's my fault, right? It's not that the body wants to punish me. The body's just saying, hey, I feel lousy because you keep giving me the wrong fuel. I need 95 octane, and you're giving me 130 or whatever. Still on my team, this is the wrong fuel. It can't work like this. Please stop. That's what the body is saying. So if we could be in tune with the rest of us, we would understand that too. By the way, this can be understood in all levels. On the moral level, Somebody who's constantly getting angry for no reason. Okay? You can say, what do you care if I get angry? You know what? I don't care, but I don't want to be your friend. So bye. Okay? Because you get angry all the time, you're going to lose all your friends. They're not punishing you. That's a direct cause of the fact that you get angry all the time and nobody can stand being next to you anymore. So what comes around goes around. And when you act a certain way, people also respond a certain way. So it's not just the body, it's the relationship to ethics. If I'm a nasty person, nobody wants to be around me. If I own a company, okay, my employees will show up at work, but they won't want to talk to me. So when you're nice to people, they want to be around you. When you say good things about people, hey, they want to be around you all the time. Everybody likes when somebody says something nice about them. And if you really mean it, whoa. Okay. Sometimes, people say nice things, but you don't feel they mean it. It's sort of like because there's body language, we can pick up things. But sometimes people mean it and we appreciate it. If a mother holds a child like this and says, I really love you, child says, no. Okay, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. So it's the same thing. If you say something and somebody tells you about how hard a day they had and said, oh, that's really so bad. And then you walk away. You didn't mean it. They know they didn't mean it. So, it's hard. Children are the hardest to fool because they pick it up right like that. Sometimes as adults, we're used to that people play games. They pretend they really care. But we know that they don't. We're used to that in society. We know that when somebody says, how are you? They don't really want you to tell them. They want you to say fine. Right? Or surviving. They don't actually want you to tell them. If somebody actually tells you how they are, it's like, what a nutmeg. It's like, you're actually telling me how you are? It's like, what am I, your psychologist? Go get yourself another one, right? So they're trying to be friendly, but they don't really want to know anything about your life. So, okay, so let's go back to this. There's a lot to learn about teshuva. You look at it in the level of the personal. According to Rav Kook, there are 3 levels here. He mentions 2 levels, but you'll see there's 3. The first one is gufani, physical. When you sin against the laws of nature by eating junk food, going out in the cold without a coat, by eating sweets all day long, you're going to pay for it. It's going to bring pain. It's going to bring disease, both on the individual and on the general, by the way, because obesity can be a collective problem of a society where the food of society is not made correctly. Too much salt and sugar and everything. So everybody's going to get sick in the end. And when these things are clarified, when a person thinks about it, then they realize that they are responsible for the fact that they ate the junk food. They're eating sweets all day. They're not dressed properly in the winter. And when you realize that, you say, you know what, I have to correct this situation. I have to follow the laws of nature. I have to follow the laws of nature and ethics in Torah, in order for things to go back the way life was, life is going well. It's an act of teshuva. So all day long I'm eating junk food. Then one day I say, you know what? I am so fat. I have no energy. I can't get out of bed in the morning. I think I start having to eat healthy and going to the workout room. And then I feel okay again. That is an act of teshuva, says Rav Kook, on the physical level. And there's a lot to learn from that. You caused it. You can fix it. Rabbi Nachman, Breslov says, if you believe you can destroy your life, then you have to believe that you can repair your life. Because you did it. So you can do it the other way too. Continuing. Medicina, second bazeh, didn't have the word refuah in his day. It says medicine tries to understand this area. It's not developed enough to completely deal with everything, have an answer for all of our physical ailments. As much as it can, it wants to fix man against the sins that he caused against his own body. Right? We eat junk food, we're not feeling well, we go to the doctor. But the truth is, no, he caused it. It seems that this area of teshuva is very connected with the other areas of teshuva too. What I'm referring to is moral, the ruchanit tivit, muni v'sichlit, all the other levels. So, what are the other levels? Level number one was physical. Things I do against my body, I caused it, I have to fix it. Okay. I don't remember I am recording. Okay, I just wasn't sure. Go back. Right? Share screen. Your terpenimit. We go a little bit further in to the human psyche and soul. We find another type of tshuva, nafshit ruchanit, which means of the psyche, of the spirit. Here he's going to define nafshit as moral teshuva. This is what we call musar klayot. In English, we would call it having a guilty conscience. Having a guilty conscience. You see, it is the nature of the human being to go the right path, be honest. When we fall off the path, we fall into sin. If our psychological makeup is not totally distorted, because that can happen, especially if we were brought up in the wrong family. So if our psychological makeup was not totally distorted, then this sense of honesty and goodness makes me feel bad. It's called a healthy moral conscience. I do the wrong thing, I feel bad because I didn't really want to do the wrong thing. And sometimes it hurts when I do the wrong thing, especially the people who I think are innocent. So I tend to get angry. And okay, I had a bad day. All my friends were making fun of me because of something in school, or I was at work and I made one mistake and everybody made a big deal out of it. I feel rotten. So I come home, I bump into my spouse or my parents or my brother or my sister. I take it out on them. This is how I take it out, because they're going to listen. Because they're willing to listen, I'm willing to take it out on them when I get angry at them. And after that, I say, you know what? That was a mistake. I should have just gone to the workout room and hit a punching bag instead. I shouldn't have taken it out on them. I feel guilty. Not sure what to do. So when a person has a healthy guilty conscience, it makes you feel bad when you did the wrong thing. It's like a thermometer. It's a moral thermometer which can tell you when you did the wrong thing. And that pushes me, gives me an impetus to fix the distortion until I feel like set things right, got rid of that mistake, of that transgression. Part of teshuva is very complicated because it's connected to a lot of different conditions of life. There are many ways that you can understand it wrong. You have to watch out of all the mistakes. But it's definitely one of the basic issues of tshuva. The tshuva stands on. So, first tshuva was against bodily harm that I do. And I should realize I caused it, I can fix it. The second type of tshuva is moral tshuva. And because if I'm a healthy person, I have a moral conscience, I will realize if I did something wrong because I'll pick it up. Because Immanuel Kant pointed out that natural morality is a priori, which means human beings are born with it. It's innate within our being. We understand what it means to hurt somebody. We wouldn't want them to do it to us. So we totally understand if somebody took advantage of us, we would feel bad. If somebody got angry at us, we would feel bad. So when we get angry at others, we also feel bad. And this is a healthy response. It's not a bad thing. Guilt is not bad. I know Freud was anti-guilt, but guilt is not a bad thing because it's a thermometer. Overly guilt is a bad thing. Feeling too guilty is a bad thing. Feeling guilty after you've already made amends is a bad thing. But guilt as a thermometer to tell you did something wrong, it's okay. Go fix it. That's all. Don't overdo it. Just fix it. So that's the second level. These are the two levels of natural tshuva. What are the two levels? Physical and moral. For Rav Kook, morality is part of the physical part of the human being. Also for Immanuel Kant, morality is something based on human reason. It's not based on regular logic. It's a priori. It's something we know before logic. In general, things that we know before logic are very hard to argue. That's why they're called a priori. Try arguing why you shouldn't steal. Well, if I steal from you, you could steal from me. Oh, that means if I don't steal from you, it's okay for you to steal from me? Oh, no. What I mean is, if I steal from you, anybody might steal from me. Oh, so that means if nobody could steal from you, then it would be okay for you to steal from me. In other words, none of these things work. So, but it's just understanding that what doesn't belong to me, I'm not supposed to take because I could hurt somebody. That's a priority. Not based on a logical argument. It's based on rational understanding of the human disposition. Different concept. What Immanuel Kant calls a priori, understanding it intuitively before it happens. He doesn't like the word intuition, but in my opinion, intuition is part of human reason. After tshuva, you eat, the next level after natural tshuva is called emunit. And he says emunit, it means tshuva based on faith, which means based on religion, what religion tells me. Religion says I shouldn't eat non-kosher, so if I eat non-kosher, I don't feel good. But the only reason I don't feel good is because the Torah told me. If the Torah wouldn't have told me, I would have felt fine. Okay? In other words, I know the Torah prohibits me to do it, and I want to follow the Torah. Torah says to me I should put on tefillin, but I was lazy. I didn't put on tefillin. So now I feel bad because I know that according to Torah, I'm supposed to put on tefillin. That's called doing tshuva on something I received in a religious tradition. He calls that tshuva emunit. Tshuva emunit. Okay? Somebody just joined us, but I don't see who it is on the iPhone. Welcome.
Hi, it's me.
I know. Oh, lovely.
I came really late. I just saw. I set a timer, but somehow
Excellent. I record everything too, so b'vakasha. Thank you for joining. So I'm talking about here the concept of tshuva in the writings of Rabbi Kook. I'm trying to explain that for Rav Kook, tshuva is a paradigm to understand many things, not only in the Torah, but in life. And his chapter 1 starts about, he's discussing personal tshuva. Personal tshuva has 3 levels, according to Rav Kook. Level number 1, which we just discussed, tshuva, if you eat natural tshuva, there's 2 parts to it. Number 1 are transgressions against my body. If I eat junk food, I will pay for it. I'll start feeling bad after a while. If I'm constantly eating sweets and I become obese, I'll start getting sick. If I go out in the winter without a coat when it's cold, I will be sick. And this teaches me that being sick is not a punishment. It's something I brought up. It's a direct result from my abuse of my body. The next level is mistakes of morality or transgressions of morality. If there are people I love, but I'm feeling bad and I keep getting angry at them for no reason, just because they're willing to listen, I need to do tshuva too. Because my friends will just walk away. My family won't because they care about me, but they're really going to feel bad about it. if I have a healthy conscience, matzpun, which Rav Kook calls musar klayot, eventually I'll feel bad that I'm doing this, that I'm abusing them. As soon as I realize that this is happening. And that's good. Even though Freud thinks that guilt is bad, guilt is a moral thermometer to tell me that I made a mistake. Over guilt is bad. Drowning in my guilt is bad. But guilt as something that picks me up and says, hey, you did something wrong, that's okay. Just like the feeling of pain in the body physically is a very important thing for my survival, because I know that something's wrong. I stepped on a nail, I feel pain. If I didn't feel pain, I wouldn't realize I stepped on a nail and I would have infection. I need pain to tell me there's a problem. So morally, I need a guilty conscience, which will say, Ralph, you did something wrong. And do you notice that they're all walking away from you and they really don't like listening to you anymore? Yeah, that's what it's there to remind me I made a mistake. So on the second level, which is called teshuva tivit musarit, nafshit, has to do with things that have to do with, as I said, with things that I broke the moral code between myself and somebody else. And I'm not necessarily talking about theft. I'm talking about just the way I'm treating other people, abusing other people. And therefore, if I have my conscience says to me, this is wrong, it wakes me up, realize that this is not what I want. Because if a healthy human being has this, a human being can be affected, unfortunately, but a healthy human being has this. People are extreme cases of psychopaths with absolutely no moral conscience at all. You have people who have partial moral conscience because they were abused as children sometimes, and it's difficult for them, but a healthy human being does have this thermometer, moral compass, tell them what they need to change. So let's go back to this. This is chapter 1, all right? Next level, he says, which is more pnimi, is called teshuva emunit, which I call religious teshuva. Comes from the tradition, from the religion. Religion talks a lot about teshuva. The Torah says that a person does teshuva will be forgiven. There's teshuva of the individual, teshuva of the community. And the prophets talked a lot about teshuva. And the Torah talks a lot about teshuva. There are many details about this. So Torah's teshuva, again, what does it mean? Again, it means that, you can't see it anyhow. What it means is, Torah says to me, I'm not allowed to eat non-kosher. I ate non-kosher. I feel bad because I know the Torah told me this and I believe the Torah. If I hadn't read the Torah, or if I didn't believe in the Torah, it wouldn't bother me eating a ham sandwich. Okay? But it's because I believe in the code. So when I do this, I say to myself, I really shouldn't do this because if I believe in it, what am I doing? Okay. But this is only when a person develops a relationship to this tradition. Then they will. By the way, this can be in other traditions too. Let's say a person has a family tradition. They get together every year on Thanksgiving in the United States. And you're not going. People won't accept it. Hey, you're not part of us anymore. So you'll feel bad for not getting together on Thanksgiving, which is really your family decided. I can tell you Canadians are not big about Canadian Thanksgiving like the Americans are. So these become family traditions. You don't even know. Canadian Thanksgiving is in October. American Thanksgiving is in November. In Canada, people are not as big on it. United States, whoa, you didn't show up for Thanksgiving. What type of son, daughter, whatever, cousin you are? Yeah. So that's the second. That's the third level. So in natural teshuva, there were 2 levels. One is doing teshuva to mend your physical body. Second was moral teshuva, and then you have teshuva from tradition, from religious tradition. The final level is called teshuva sichlit, which means rational teshuva. What does that mean? Once a person already fixed themselves on the level, on the natural level, meaning sins against the body and sins against morality, and also sins against the tradition. Now you have reached a higher level. And not only the pains of the body, but the pains of the consciousness, the pains of the spirit, the things that bother you, and not only things that you received in tradition religiously, or things that you're afraid that may be of reward and punishment. Now, you look at these things from a rational point of view, because you realize that all these things are now part of your Weltanschauung, of your way of understanding life. And now that it's part of your way of understanding life, you don't want to change your own perspective on life. Understand what he's saying here? What he's saying is like this. All these levels, which I said until now, transgressions against the body by eating junk food, transgressions, moral transgressions, where I need a consciousness to tell me, healthy consciousness, a healthy conscience to tell me that I made mistakes against others. Mistakes that I make against tradition. As soon as all these things become part of my understanding of life, of my rational perspective of life, I'm going to look at these differently. Let me give you an example. The reason why I'm not eating junk food now is not because I don't like it. It's because I realized that if I eat healthy, I'm going to feel much better. So now I want to take upon myself a healthy lifestyle because I see this gives me a longer life. It makes my days better. I feel better about myself. I can relate better to people. I'm not groggy. I want to be this way. So it's not a question anymore of am I suffering from diabetes or am I worried about heart disease? I want to leave this type of lifestyle. I feel it's better for me. Let's go to the next level. I want to be a moral person now. It's not just because it makes me feel bad that I got angry at you when I shouldn't have. I'm beyond that now. I want to be that good person because I feel that it makes me 100% of what I can be. And that's the way I want people to see me. It's not just because I hurt somebody and I want to make up for it. I don't even want to get to that point. I want to be seen as an honest person because I see a value to that. And those who think I'm being naive, let them think that. I don't care. See what's going on here? Now let's take the next level. The level of what he talked about, the tradition. The reason why I keep kosher is not that I'm afraid that God is going to hit me with lightning bolt. That's infantile. I want to keep the tradition because I now see that it can give me an advantage to life spiritually, which I did not realize before, for reasons which I don't want to talk about at the moment, because that's much more involved. But this is now the way I see life. I want to be a traditional Jew. It gives me certain advantages. It makes me transcend the animal kingdom. It gives me a certain perspective on the world, which I notice that other people don't like. Not don't like, but don't value. But I see the value. And therefore I want to do it. And I will feel bad if I cannot live up to these ideals that I believe in. Just like I believe in moral ideals, I believe in certain traditional ideals from Judaism, which I believe is a certain level of morality, which might go beyond human perception, but I feel intuitively that they are good for my life. You understand what's going on here? I just transformed all the levels into an intellectual level, which is part of my perspective on life. Now let's keep reading. Yakara brura, it's a clear perception. It comes from whole perspective on life, on the world. Al shal talam alata, which is on a high vista. After the natural and religious levels of teshuva have already affected me in a certain way. This level of tshuva, which includes all the levels underneath it, is much more fulfilling. It's full of light. It changes all sins into merits, because now I understand now it's not about the punishment, it's about actualizing myself as a human being. And from all the mistakes I made in my past, I can now learn lofty ideals. Anytime I fell, this is something which teaches me something about life. This is the tshuva that everybody aspires to. This is the tshuva that has to materialize itself in this world. So for Rav Kook, tshuva tiv'it, we're going to see eventually that this tshuva tiv'it is going to be a stepping stone to tshuva tzalit, to collective tshuva. But this natural tshuva, eventually the highest level of natural tshuva, is if I am able to transform everything to my personal perspective on life. That'd be part of my own, what we call Weltanschauung, the way I look at the world. Because if it's the way I look at the world, then I have to be accountable to myself, not just to God. And to be accountable to yourself means you're taking responsibility. And that's what God wants. He wants you to take responsibility. What does it say about Avraham in Breshit? Leman, why God says I will need to tell Avraham, because Avraham is going to teach his children and the people in his house the way of justice and righteousness. He's not waiting for me to do it. Therefore, he's the one I have to talk to. When God sees human beings who take responsibility, who take accountability for their own actions because they are self-propelled. Wow. Okay. I mean, that's mind-blowing, even from God's perspective. We're allowed to talk that way because that's the way the Bible talks, okay? Anthropomorphically. So God gets excited when he sees an Avraham, much more than he gets excited over Noah. Remember what Yaakov says to Joseph when he is blessing his children. He says, Ha-Elohim asher hitalchu avotai lefanav. The God whom my ancestors walked in front of him. What does it mean? Meaning Avraham and Yitzchak walked before God. What does it mean to walk before God? You don't need God to take your hand. You know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You're self-propelled morally. About Noach, it says, Et ha-Elohim italech Noach. Noach walked hand in hand with God because Noach didn't really know what to do. It says everything God told him he did. But he really didn't, lo nafala simon, we would say in Hebrew. He really didn't know what to do by himself. Avraham and Yitzchak had no problem understanding what to do. They didn't have to keep asking God what to do. They got the point. The Torah wants us to get the point. Ramban, on the Pasuk in Sefer Dvarim, Vasita hayashar v'tov b'nei Hashem Elohecha, do what is right and good in the eyes of God. Ramban says, what does this Pasuk mean? Isn't the whole Torah about doing what's just and good in the eyes of God? Ramban says, this Pasuk is to tell you that the Torah cannot tell you everything you're supposed to do in life, in every single circumstance. That's impossible. So the Torah says, once you've figured it out, now, based on everything you've learned, just do what's just and right in the eyes of God. Hopefully, you understood the principle. And when you understand the principle, you'll get the rest. When a potential convert came over to Hillel the elder and said to him, teach me the whole Torah while you're standing on one foot. And Shammai refused to do that. But Hillel said, not a problem. What's the whole Torah standing on one foot? What you would not want others to do to you, don't do to others. As soon as you are sensitized morally, that now prepares you for what's called Torah. If you're not sensitized morally, you'll never understand Torah. Even if you know the whole Talmud backward and forward. Because You'll have gone through the Talmud. It will have not gone through you. So until you are sensitized morally, nothing will make sense. Once you're sensitized morally, you can run with it, because then everything will start making sense. Because derech eretz kadma Torah, being a mensch, being a human being, a sensitized human being, that comes before the Torah. Just like the patriarchs or the matriarchs came before Sinai, before the Torah was given. You need that preparation to be a sensitive human being before anything else makes sense. So here too, so Rav Kook is preparing us. The highest level of individual tshuva is when you do something because it is now your own understanding of life. You're now connecting to it personally. That's the highest level of tshuva. It's not because you're worried about punishment or you're looking for some reward. It's because now it's part of your world. So, other things we can learn from this chapter, I mentioned before, that what comes around goes around. When we do something wrong on the natural level, we suffer from our mistakes. We have to realize we suffer from our mistakes physically and morally. And we also suffer from our mistakes spiritually, but we just don't realize it. As I said before, you don't eat for a day, you don't feel good. You don't pray for a month, you feel okay. It didn't mean you didn't suffer, though. Because there are aspects of the human being that it takes us longer to understand. You know, when you meet somebody who has worked on themselves as a human being, by the way, Jewish or not, but when you see somebody who's worked on themselves on a human being, and they study and they care about others, and they do mitzvot, you feel that this is a person who is more developed. You realize that they are different. Right away, everybody sees that about these people. They have a certain sensitivity, a certain way of looking at things, a certain temperate moderation about them. They're more tolerant to people. They don't anger as much, if at all. Remember, my father was very hard for him to get angry. Wasn't his thing. So it depends how you look at life. Okay, I think this is enough for the moment. So this was chapter 1 of Orot HaTshuva. You can look at it in Boxer, it's in English. Here online, it's in Hebrew. Next time, I'll bring the English again. And next week, what I want to talk about is chapters 2 and 3, which are also talking about tshuva, but I call it tshuva in time and tshuva in space. And we'll talk about that next week. Bye, everybody. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, Rabbi.